Alright, 2.3 is about rate of change and slope. 3 ways to find rate of change, which is also another word for slope. Make sure you write that down as a connection because that is another phrase they use. Those topics were covered in Chapter 5 of Algebra 1, but we'll briefly review them before moving on to your homework. So, slope of an equation. If you remember that the slope-intercept formula is y equals mx plus b, anytime the y variable has been isolated, the rate of change is always the number that is attached to x. And so you can actually solve for y using the literal equation stuff that we did last chapter and take whatever numbers attached to x and use that to your advantage. This was actually part of yesterday's, this was actually part of yesterday's work, so we're not going to use time today to review it. Just be sure to ask about it if necessary. I don't know what that means. I don't think we did that yesterday. Slope of a graph. Rise over run. Hopefully you remember that phrase. This is what you use to find the slope of a graph. You must find 2 good points. After that, use the counting method to find the slope. Rising up is positive, rising down is negative, but you will always run to the right. That is the key thing you want to remember. That is key number 2. See, it was waiting for me. Always run right, which means when you are finding the slope of a line and you have 2 dots or 2 good points, a good point means it crosses on one of these grid points. Do not start from the right point, start from the left point and rise first. That would be 2 steps up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps over. That is a positive 2/5. Another way I can know it's positive is if I wrote my name on this line, it's going in an upward direction. Common sense. Writing on the line tells you the direction it's going. Or imagine writing on a line that tells you the direction it's going. On this one, again, 2 points start from the left. This here I have to go 2 down and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over. Yep, so negative 2 over 6. Do not leave that as your answer. Make sure you reduce it or simplify it because it is negative 1/3. Putting negative 2/6 on a test is going to get it marked wrong, so be careful. The special slopes are the 0 and undefined slopes. The easy way to remember this is pick 2 points. Notice that your rise is 0. Your run in this case is 2, and 0 over 2 is 0. Here, if you pick some points, notice that your rise is 1, your run is 0, and anytime you do 1 divided by 0 in your calculator, or anything divided by 0, you get an error. So if you get an error, that means that it is undefined. And so you want to make sure you're aware of those two. But here's the easy way I remember 0 versus undefined. I can stand on this line, I can walk on this line. As I walk on this line, I am naturally going to raise or lower nothing at all. Like walking on this is flat. I'm not going to increase my height, I'm not going to lower my height. Also, if I wrote on this line, it's going to go straight forward, so 0. You cannot stand on this line. Standing on this line is the same as falling down, and that's it. So, again, if you can't stand on a line, it's undefined. Because you think about it, I can stand on this one, and I'd be walking up. I could stand on this one, and I'd be walking down. I can stand on this one, and I'd be walking straight forward, so all those have a slope. The one I cannot stand on is undefined. Last thing is the slope of 2 points. Again, if you forget this formula, please make sure that you write this down because you're going to need it. Most important in taxing process is find the slope of 2 points. It requires a memorization of the slope formula. As I explain to my students in 135 every year, your Algebra 2 teacher is going to expect you to know this formula. And so you need to know it because I am now your Algebra 2 teacher, even though your teacher might not have told you that. It's the expectations that I teach with, so that is that. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Remember that means the second y minus the first y, the second x minus the first x. And so the way I teach this is a little different because that way you don't have to memorize the formula. But again, whatever it is on your homework, on one of your questions, I'm sure for sure you have to use the fraction form and actually type it in and show your work. And I know how some of you feel about showing your work, and so I'm telling you right now that you're going to have to do at least one problem like what I'm going to do down here. The most consistent way I learned this, as is required in your assignment, as I said, is to convert the points into a table. Let's look at a couple quick examples before looking at the trick problem of the section. So what I usually do is whenever I teach this to my 4s and 5s, again, I've been teaching lower level algebra for the last 14 years, again, longer than you've been alive, and so I have found ways to help them understand it better, and so I want to make sure that you see this too because it does help. what you do is you pretty much take your table here, 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 and you do your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which means that y2 is your second y. So it'll be negative 2 minus y1, which is 8, over x2, which is negative 3, minus negative 5. Notice how you have to put two negatives there because it is a negative 5 and you're subtracting it. You then put these two things together, that makes negative 10. Those two things switch, which makes it 2, making a rate of change of negative 5. You are, on your computer, going to have to type this part in on one question, not all of them, but on one of your questions they're expecting you, and it would be negative 3 minus negative 5 or whatever it would be, but just keep in mind you are going to have to do that on one question. The thing about the table mode is all you have to do in the table mode is remember it's this minus this over this minus that, and then you don't really have to memorize it anymore because it's take this number minus that number, put it over this number minus that number, and that is it. And so if I was to do B, I don't need an XY table. I simply take this point, put it here, take this point, put it here, and again, following that pattern, 3 minus negative 10 over negative 4 minus negative 6. These two switch, making 13. These two switch, making 2. 13 over 2 would be my slope. Yes, it is. And that is it. Okay? So again, that's pretty much what you're looking at there. The tricky problem for today, and again, there are two of these on there, so make sure you kind of get it, pretty much gives you the 2 points with one of the variables missing, and then it gives you the actual slope of what's going on there, so you can figure out what that variable is. And so what you have to do with this is you have to take your slope and recognize that that is your m, that is the actual slope. And then you take these two things, and again, my safest way to do it is with the table. Negative 18c, negative 10, negative 12, which means that my fraction would be negative 12 minus c over negative 10 minus negative 18. Simplifying this, I get negative 12 minus c over, what, 8? That is the algebraic form as simplified as possible for the slope of these 2 points. Again, taking these 2 points, I plugged them into the slope formula. I simplified as far as I could. This represents the slope of these 2 points. Well, the slope of these 2 points is also 3/4. So what I'm going to do is write this over here. Now, whenever you're dealing with algebra with a negative fraction where the negative is in front, typically what I do is I just move the negative to the top, because otherwise you end up losing it. Because if I put it in front of this fraction and I go to do what you should know to do in proportions, which is a cross multiply, if the negative is not attached to one of the numbers, you end up either using it twice, which is illegal, or you don't use it at all, which is also illegal. So whenever I have a negative fraction, I just move it up to the top. And now when I do my work, remember you have to do 4 times both of these, so negative 48 minus 4c equals negative 24. I will then move my 48 by adding 48 to both sides, getting 24 equals negative 4c, and therefore c should be equal to negative 6. Now let's see if that works. Negative 12 minus negative 6 over 8, because again I'm taking this answer and plugging it back into my most simplified formula. That turns into what? Those become positive, so negative 6 over 8, which is negative 3 over 4. So I can trust that the answer is negative 6. There are a few of these trick questions in chapter 2. Again, make sure you take those questions seriously. I don't think they're hard to do. It's just a matter of, again, you're in Algebra 2 and there are some processes that you need to actually learn. The good news is you can always hit similar question. I program these myself and I practice them myself, which means that you can actually work this question out 100 times and probably, well, I wouldn't say that many, but 10 times and never get the same question twice, which means that you can practice this skill. It is a test question. It's going to be asked on a test. So again, just make sure you do what you need to do to get ready for that. But other than that, go ahead and go to your homework and again, ask questions if you get stuck. Good luck.